Boy, I love hearing that tune. Every week, it means you're in for a treat because it's time for another edition of the Rec Poker Podcast. My name's Jim Reed. I've got the best freaking job in the world. I get to hang out here on Monday night and talk to my poker friends about this game that we all love so much. That's what Rec Poker is all about. So I got to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. And in fact, this whole episode, we're going to be talking about a tournament that they're coming up, a free-roll tournament. That we think we might have some ideas on how to maximize your EV in the tournament. So big thanks to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Big thanks to our premium members. You know, most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization. So we really rely on the support of our premium members. Folks like Eric Anderson, who's going to be here in the conversation today. One of the perks of being a premium member is that you get to come join the Zoom chat for the forums edition that we have every week. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Whether it's the book studies, the Poker Tracker 4 review group, Eric's Play, Explain, and Learn, Chris's deep dive. There's just so many amazing ways to get involved, to unlock some of this learning material that we put out every month, to get behind the scenes with our Learning with Partners program, to check out the material at some of the other fantastic poker training sites out there. That's what we're all about here at Rec Poker, learning poker and having fun together. So I think I said already, my name's Jim Reed. I have the best job in the world. I'm Rec Poker Jim on Twitter and Bluffsterini in the home game. But I'm just one man. They give me the mic on Mondays, but I'm really just part of this leadership group here, this village that it takes to run Rec Poker. We call it the Wrecking Crew. And if you want to find out more about me and the other members on the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew. But listen up, you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the air.
Hi, I'm Ben Enslow, BJM96 over on Twitch. You can find the rest of my socials there. And East Coast Bitter in the home game.
And I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game.
My name is Eric Jin. I am Binkley on the forums. I play a COM Binkley in the home games, and I'm Rec Binkley on Twitter.
Poker Geek MN everywhere.
You just cut out a little there, but that is the one and only John Somsky. We did hear that you are Poker Geek MN everywhere.
All right. That's true.
And I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
I'm Taylor Moss. I'm at Taylor_Moss on Twitter, and Gopherboy TJM in the home game.
Like I said, we are pleased to be joined by our premium members here every week that we do the forums edition of the show. This week, we've got prolific forums poster and regular on the Rec Poker Forums Edition podcast, Eric Anderson. Eric, please welcome Rec Poker Nation and tell them where they can find you.
You can find me at eAnderson85 on PokerStars and at rec.poker.
And for all you other premium members who are having a great time listening to the show, be like Eric. I'm kind of surprised we don't get more premium members coming out here and joining us on the podcast. We have a very robust group that come and join our strategy conversations and our book studies and all the other study groups and stuff that we do. But come on the show, come on the air. And if there's a hand or a spot from a tournament or a cash game that you've played recently that you'd like to analyze with the rest of the Wrecking Crew, there's no better way than to come do it on the forums edition of the show. So head on over to rec.poker. The homepage has a little calendar. If you just scroll down a little bit, you can see all the great stuff that's going on. And on Monday nights, after the chats edition, we often have a forums recording. So feel free to jump in here and join the rest of the group. So, like I say, often we look at a particular spot from the forum. Someone will post an area where they feel like they've got something to learn. And there's always so many great responses in the Rec Poker forums, which are free to join. You don't even need a premium account for that. To sign up for a free community account, all you need is an email address and a smile, although both are mandatory. This week, this isn't a forum post, but it's a conversation that was started because of this fantastic free roll tournament that the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino are having very soon. I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to come out, but on January 28th, it's the Hockey Day free roll. The buy-in is free, and there's a $5,000 purse prize pool that's been put up by the Running Aces. It's open to anyone who has a player's card from the casino there, and you get to just kind of show up and try your luck against the other regular members at Running Aces in this $5,000 free roll. So that's not that. I mean, that's great. That's not that complicated. The thing that makes it kind of strategically interesting is that you can add on chips for $10. And this is a pretty common situation with promotional free rolls like this. There's a prize pool, it's free, and then you have the option of adding on chips for a surcharge. In this case, it's an unlimited number of add-ons available, but no rebuys. You have to have chips in front of you in order to add on. So it's not like a get out of jail free card. You have to kind of plan ahead a little bit. And one of the things I thought we'd talk about tonight, well, Chris Jones, who runs all the most of the learning material over here, thought this would be a good time to kind of talk about some strategies that we might take going into this. So, Chris, you've got the structure sheet up there. Can you just share some of the details about the tournament with our audience?
Just a few more kind of details about this tournament, this specific tournament. But this will apply to other. If you see these kinds of things, they're fairly common. You should look at the structure sheet if you're starting off, if you're playing one of these somewhere else, because they will be slightly different. But I think it's really good to look at a structure sheet and then come up with a strategy. So,
and actually, I'm gonna interrupt you already, Chris. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I want to point out if you're a little behind in your podcast episodes, there's actually another free roll at Running Aces on March 18th, the post Patty free roll. So just after St. Patrick's Day. So even if you're not catching this in time to make the Hockey Day free roll on January 28th, March 18th, I'm sure, is right around the corner. And I'm sure it's the exact same structure sheet. Yeah, everything that we talk about tonight should apply.
They used to do this every Monday night, but I think they're now getting back to it, sort of doing it every once in a while, probably six or 8 times a year kind of thing. But so here's some other things. Like you mentioned, this is a freeze out structure. So you cannot get back in if you get knocked out. Which is a key part to sort of like making a decision here. It's not like you can go rebuy, right? Like once you're out, you're out. The free chips that you get 2,000 free chips. So you can just show up and take your chances, try to run up your stack, which on level 1, the blinds are a 100 with a 200 big blind ante so it's 100, 200 with a 200 big blind ante. So you basically have 10 big blinds with the free stack at the starting level. And then you can add on a stack for $10. You can add increments of 5,000. So you could have 7,000, 12,000, all the way up to like, I don't know, you could really go for it, right? You pile on the chips if you wanted to. But would that be a good idea? I think that's part of what we wanted to have this conversation around. Is like, what is the optimum way to play a tournament like this? The other thing that you can do is sort of add on in sort of increments, right? You can add on as many of these as you want up until the first break, I think. And so you could potentially like start off with just the free stack or start off with one add-on and then be like, oh, now I'm getting short, I'm going to add on a few more. So you could do that as well. So that is allowed within the rules. As long as you have one chip in front of you, you can add on. But if you have 0 chips in front of you, you're out.
One more question, Chris. What are the length of the blinds?
The blinds.
How long is each level?
That's a good question. Each
they're like 10 minutes.
Level is.
I thought they used to be 12-minute blinds.
Maybe 12, yeah.
I am not seeing this on the.
I'll poke around a bit while you keep talking about
structure.
10 minutes seems
12 minute blinds. 12-minute blinds.
Still seems fast live.
Yeah, that's super fast.
Yes.
Oh, it is. It's hugely fast.
It goes really fast.
I've
Can you add on while you're in the hand?
No.
I think it counts at the start of the next hand. Yeah, good question.
I got aces. I won $100.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought this would be a really interesting conversation because I think there's a lot of considerations here. I think I see people show up at these with very different strategies. There's some people who just go with their, like, I'm going to take my 2,000 chips. I'm just going to get it in, hope to spin it up and like, let's go. I see some people show up and pile on the chips just to start. I see some people take that kind of incremental approach. Like, I'm going to start off, and if I get unhealthy, then I'm going to add on and whatever. What what does everyone? Does anyone have any thoughts or what they think are the best approaches to this spot?
Yeah. So my first thought is we're always playing the effective stack, right? So if nobody adds on and we add on, it doesn't matter, right? But if the worst player adds on like 5 times, well, maybe I should add on 5 times. If the best player adds on, maybe I shouldn't add on.
Yep. I kind of like the idea also. The thing that occurred to me is if no one else at your table has added on and you add on, then you can not bust. It's impossible for you to bust. And even if you lose everything that you could lose in that hand, you can still add on the next hand. If another player at your table loses a hand with you and you've got them covered and they're all in, they can't rebuy. So there's this element of sort of being invincible at the table if you have the other players covered, because you can't bust and they can. And that seems like a way that you could apply some pressure in some circumstances.
Yeah, there was one player who I know one year bought $500 worth of, spent $500 on it. So that gave him, whatever that would have been, a huge chip amount. But he basically, and he did end up winning the tournament, but he only won a few $100s because it cost so much for, he spent so much on the chips.
Yep. Yeah, and that was kind of that was what launched this conversation, was like, so what's the correct amount? Is there a sign? Can we unlock this in some way? Can we find it? Like, what's the best EV line there? Yeah, Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, the mathematically correct response to it is to not add on, because there's the value of like chips, right? Like if you have 2,000 in chips or 5,000 in chips, your next 2,000 or 5,000 above that is not worth as much as what you currently have, because that last chip that you have can be your tournament life, and you can, win a bunch of hands and spin it up and earn all the chips rather than buying them. However, that's probably not like the realistic answer to something like that, because you have to drive all the way there. If you're playing such a short stack, you potentially have a very short tournament life. So there's some sort of like life EV types of things that, like, if I was showing up there, there's no way that I would not buy an add-on, even though I know that's like the best for my ROI, because it's a free roll. But I think there's a lot to be said around the topic of what are the other people at your table doing? Because if no one at your table buys a single add-on and you do, you're kind of hurting yourself. And likewise, if everyone at the table buys 2 add-ons and you buy 0, you're also hurting yourself. So it's kind of a weird way of like, I think you kind of have to follow the people around you.
I don't know that I completely agree with your premise there. Because I think if you look at your hourly rate, doing 0 add-ons for a good poker player is probably not the maximal hourly rate. I think you by it, particularly in this tournament. In this tournament, there is more erratic play. There are people who don't quite even know the ranks of the hands playing. So I think the EV, if you are a good player, can be very, very high. So I think, even just one add-on more than doubles your chances of going deep in this. So I'm not sure that the ROI in this particular one, I'm not sure the highest ROI is going to come from doing no add-ons.
Well, I can guarantee the highest ROI comes from doing 0 add-ons, because anything divided by 0 is infinity. But but your hourly rate and discussion around that topic is very correct, right? Because you could be, trying to play short stack for 2 hours, get nothing out of it, and you wasted 2 hours. But if you gave yourself more chips, you're more likely to have an expected payout. And then you improve your hourly rate that way. So I do agree with that.
The other thing I think about that, sorry, just to kind of add on to that, that the first add-on is such a big deal, to me. Like, it's more valuable than the rest of the add-ons because, as Jim pointed out, you cover all the people who are coming and being like, I'm just going to spin it up with my 2000, and they're going to have to get it in desperate. You're just going to be allowed to sort of catch those chips when you have the hands that can do that. And if you know what you're doing, that's a really valuable place to put yourself in. And then I think the more you add on, I'm kind of also, then you're right. It depends on what other players are you doing at your table. But I think it's, for me, my perspective, it's a mistake not to do the first add-on because you're allowed to sort of like catch those chips as they come. But Ben, you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just trying to take like a more of a, I don't know, finger in the wind kind of thing, as Matt Staples would call it. But can't you just kind of look at how much they're guaranteeing, roughly how many players you think you're going to play, and then make an estimated judgment on, okay, how many bullets you should fire, and also use some of the information, like you're saying, at the table to say, okay, who's adding on, who's not adding on, how are they playing, and stuff like that. And then kind of combine all these factors to try and use that to try and say, okay, well, maybe I'll add on a bullet because, you know, I want to match this guy who's splashing around, and I want to, collect some of those chips so I can last longer in the tournament and potentially, make more money.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes. I like that we're kind of coming at this from a few different directions, a few different perspectives. Because the first thing that I thought of when I was thinking about this was, I think, similar to Taylor's idea, which is that you have an infinite ROI on that first stack. So there's like a mathematical argument for just, that's your best edge right there. Your next stack of chips is going to cost something. So no matter how much you win by it, it can never have that same kind of absolute ROI. But that's a pretty academic argument, as opposed to, I think, what John was getting at about having an hourly rate, or giving yourself a better chance of winning the tournament, or a better chance of placing higher in the tournament. Giving yourself some extra chips is going to be a good way to do that. The other thing that occurs to me is that, for me, it would really depend on who was at my table and who else. Like, if the player to my right has bought on a bunch, and let's say everyone's the same skill level. If the player to my right has added on a few, I'm probably adding on a few. If the player to my left has added on a few, but everyone else has the same, I'm less inclined to play deep, because I'd rather have the stack on my right so I can have position on them. And just like Taylor was saying as well, I think it was Eric, if the better players have deeper stacks, I want to, I'm the wreck. I want to use my short stack ninja powers to my advantage and nullify their skill advantage by playing a shorter stack there.
One thing to remember is this tournament goes so quick that whatever situation you're optimizing for, wait 5 minutes and it's going to be different. So these tournaments can be a lot of fun. And I've played them several times. And I don't know that I necessarily do the straight up optimal approach, but kind of my approach is, I'm willing to spend up to $100 maximum if everything falls just right. That's reasonable for me for a night of play. Typically, what I'll do is I'll get 5 add-ons, 4 to 5 right away. And that way I'll have most of the table covered or close to covered. I'm not in any danger early on in it. And then I'll be willing to add on if the situation presents itself, if I think I'm still playing well, yada, yada, yada. And I've run pretty deep in these. I have to look back at my records. I don't know if I've ever won one, but I know I've come in the top 2 or 3 spots before. And they are pretty fun.
That's a good point to mention your bankroll. I mean, if you could just budget however much you want to spend. If I only want to spend $50, then go buy your first buy-in and cap what you're going to buy in for.
Well,
Yeah, I
and
like
we
that.
did interview someone on this podcast who won one of these free rolls off of the free roll. They had, or maybe it was like one extra buy-in or something like that. Something. So it is possible to do.
Rob, did you have something there?
Yeah, Rob,
sorry,
I was just going to jump, but people, I know people have done that, who've run just the free bullet and won it.
Rob Washington.
Yeah, I've played these number of times, like John has said. I think when I played them, there was a limit though as to the number of add-ons, and I think it was 5. So to me, if you have 2,000 chips and the blind levels are 12 minutes, and so you've got 10 big blinds, you're going to see 3 hands before the next level. So think about, do you want to play poker or do you just want to gamble? If you just want to gamble, go over to a slot machine, throw the money in and be done. But if you want to play poker, you're going to have some chips in front of you. And when you say you look around the table and to see what, if everybody's at your level, that's never going to happen in this tournament. Anyone in this room right here, that any one of us 9 are going to be dominating talent-wise in that tournament. I guarantee you. So, because the big guys are not playing these free rolls.
Yeah.
What you have is a lot of recreational people that don't study. They want to play poker. They want to have fun. They sit down. They don't even buy in over their 2,000 chips. They give them away right away. So I think you need to have some chips over and above everybody at your table right away. So what I would do is I would buy up to my $50 if that's what I was going to spend that night for playing poker. I just buy that right now. So I'd have 27,000 chips, and I guarantee you there would be 4 or 5 people at the table that were not going to buy add-on at all. So now you're ahead of all that, and that's all free money. That's all free to you because you have no risk of ruin, because they are going to go out within the first 2 rounds and you're going to collect all that money. So do you want to play poker or do you want to just throw some money in a slot machine? That's up to you. If you want to play poker, you better add on.
And Rob makes a good point about like the field for this. And I think John made this point as well, but I mean, it really is a significant factor because like when this kind of opportunity comes across, what tends to happen when I've been there, and I've participated in some of these too. What tends to happen is there's people who show up intentionally to take part in the free roll, but then there's people who are like playing blackjack or doing whatever, and they hear, oh, there's a free tournament, oh, fun, let's go play. You're right, and like they've never played poker maybe in their life, so the skill level at this tournament is very low. I would say, not to put any, or less experience, let's just say, not to put any value judgments on it. So if you have a skill edge in this tournament, you have actually a pretty massive one.
Yeah, that's a point worth reinforcing, that this is one of those rare poker tournaments where there might be multiple people at your table who don't know whether a straight beats 3 of a kind. That's not hyperbole. Like that you might actually, you don't get many opportunities to play those games where there's a real cash prize at the end. There's a much softer field than the Rec Poker Home Game League, just to be clear. This is a particularly soft field. So I kind of get the argument for, I think it was Rob who was talking about your own bankroll. And excuse me if it was someone, it was Eric. It was about your own bankroll. If you're really at the point where you're a play money player, then I don't think there's anything wrong with coming in and trying to spin up that free stack. But for $10, I mean, if you get a chance to triple the stack of the less experienced players at the table for $10, I think that does translate into a non-trivial increase in your ability to place in the money or even to win the tournament. So I guess are there any other factors? Yeah, Ben.
Well, I was gonna ask Rob. So, by the sounds of your strategy, you would sit down and you would automatically get chips no matter what. You're getting, 2 or 3 or 4, or however many you feel comfortable with in your bankroll. you're doing that right away, or are you spacing that out, or what's your
doing it right
thoughts
away.
on that? You're doing it
I'm
right
doing
away.
it right away. The blinds move so fast that those chips don't last very long.
Right.
I mean, unless if you want to be patient and wait for big hands and try to play that way, you're not going to be able to do it with 2,000 chips. Like I said, if you want to play with 2,000 chips and you just want to go to a roulette table or go to a slot machine, stick your money in there and be done. Because that's what you're doing. You're just getting it all in with any stupid ace. Hoping you at the beginning of a tournament, you don't want to do that, right?
Right. Of course.
So I like to have a starting balance that would be more similar to the types of tournaments that I normally would play in. Knowing that the blinds are so fast that you're only going to get 3 or 4 hands per round before the blinds change. So, I mean, that really, if you bring in 25,000 chips, so now you start with 27,000, that's still not going to last you very long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way the blinds go up, it's just like boom, 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 boom. And pretty soon you're sitting there at 15 big blinds, even though you bought in for, $50. So.
Right. Yeah, because I've never had the experience of playing in even a live tournament before, so I'm just trying to like grasp, kind of like how, and I know 10 minutes, 12 minutes is long time online, but on live, it changes it a lot. So
yeah, I think I play in tournaments that are 20-minute blinds, and to me that's fast.
Yeah,
that's just, that's like a turbo, right?
Yeah.
So it's when you make it 12 and it's nothing.
Eric, Jen, you had something there, I think.
Yeah, it just we're talking about how fast the blinds go, and I was thinking that we said that a lot of these players haven't played poker, so that's going to slow down the game even more. It's
great point.
It's kind of it's on me. Oh, it's somebody. Yeah, so that, especially live, that's gonna really slow down things.
That's a really good point. And that matters when it's only 12-minute blinds. So I think, me thinking about it after hearing this conversation, if I was playing in this tournament, and again, I'll just remind folks, so even if you're not listening to this in time for the January 28th Hockey Day free roll, March 18th at Running Aces, there's the post Patty Day free roll. They've also got a couple exciting events coming up between now and then on February 2nd through 5th, the For Love of Money. It's a multi-day event. There's qualifiers starting on January 30th. March 1 through 5, there's the Pot of Gold. For the Love of Money is a $500 buy-in. The Pot of Gold is a $360 buy-in. And then on March 18th, there's the post Patty Day free roll, which is going to be the same structure as what we're talking about here tonight. So if I was to play in this one, I think the first thing I would do would be to add on once. And I'd want to cover the other players at the table. I'd want to be invincible to busting on the first hand. And I'd also like to see who else at my table decides to buy on when I add on. Because if no one adds on, including myself, I'm not going to know who are the blackjack and roulette players that have just come to play the free tournament. But if I add on and then someone, 2 other players do and the rest don't, that's going to kind of impact how I think about their ranges and the level that they're thinking on and that kind of thing. So I'm going to get a lot of information about my opponents by whether they add on or not. And then I would probably only add on from that point onwards if I was finding myself covered at the table, or if there were other players that had 2 or 3 add-ons or doubled up or tripled up or something like that. I hear a couple people on the panel saying that they'd just throw that 50 down right off the bat. And for me, I'm such a life nit. I'd be like, well, maybe I can just double up a couple times here and save, only end up putting 20 or 30 down right off the bat. And then I could add on that extra 10 later if I wanted to. But John?
Probably. So for those of you who played this before, I'm guessing the average number of buy-ins when you sit down at your first table is probably 2 to 3
per seat, per player.
Per player. Yeah. I mean, there are going to be some who have more, some who have less, but you're not going to, if you just do you had talked about doing one add-on to cover the table. You're not going to be covering the table.
Right.
And keep in mind that one add-on barely that gets you 30 big blinds, 32 big blinds. And with with some of the players that are in there, they're just going to be pushing. So those 30 big blinds don't last as long as 30 big blinds will later in the tournament. And later in the tournament, it does settle down and become more like a real tournament once most of the players who don't understand how to play have been knocked out.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, any other thoughts on this fun structure? I mean, I think you're going to see formats like this in other promotional free roll tournaments. And I guess let's just sum it up for the audience here. So some of the factors that you might consider are the stacks of the other players at the table, the experience levels of the other players at the table, the blind structure and how often they're going up. Look right and look left and just think about, where would you rather be with a big stack in comparison? Anything else? Is there any other thoughts or any other factors or strategies that we might share with the audience before we roll on out of here, gang? I don't see any, so I'll just remind our listeners, we just owe so much to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino for their support over the years. January 28th, and again, I think most of our listeners are probably not going to hear it in time to join for that one, but that March 18th post-Patty free roll, that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you are playing in any of these and you have a good time, please send me an email or tweet at me, tweet at Rec Poker or at Rec Poker Jim, or send me an email, jim@rec.poker, and tell me, did the advice help? Did you add on? Didn't you add on? What was your thoughts? What made you decide to or not to? And hopefully some people can rake in some cash over their Running Aces benefits, compliments of them, and from some great advice they heard here on the Rec Poker podcast. So I guess without further ado, I'll thank Chris Jones, Ben Enslow, Rob Washam, Eric Anderson, Eric Ginn, Taylor Moss, and John Somsky for joining me here for this Forums edition of the Rec Poker Podcast. Of course, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, but mostly you, the listeners. We couldn't do it without you. So thanks for your support, and we'll see you next week.